Can I tell you something that took me years to understand? After 34 years of marriage and more than 40 years with the same man, I've learned that one of the greatest responsibilities we have in marriage isn't protecting our pride. It isn't proving we're right. It isn't winning an argument. It's protecting our heart. The Bible tells us in Proverbs to guard our hearts because everything we do flows from it. The older I get, the more I understand why God gave us that instruction. Because our heart becomes the filter through which we see everything. If our heart is filled with peace, we tend to respond with patience. If our heart is filled with gratitude, we notice blessings. But if our heart becomes filled with hurt that we've never dealt with, it begins changing the way we hear our spouse, the way we interpret their words, and even the way we respond to everyday situations. I've learned that marriages usually aren't damaged by one difficult day. They're damaged by what happens after the difficult day. One disappointment, one misunderstanding, one conversation that never happened, one apology that never came, one hurt that never healed. By themselves, those things may not seem very significant, but if we don't deal with them, they begin stacking on top of each other. That's why I often say resentment rarely begins with something big. It begins with little things that stay too long. Sometimes we tell ourselves it's not worth bringing up. Then it happens again and again. Eventually, we're no longer responding to today's problem. We're responding to months or even years of unresolved disappointment. That's why guarding your heart matters. Now I want to explain something because I think this is often misunderstood. Guarding your heart does not mean pretending you weren't hurt. It doesn't mean staying silent when something truly needs to be discussed. It doesn't mean accepting behavior that needs to change. And it certainly doesn't mean ignoring problems until they explode. Healthy marriages don't ignore problems. Healthy marriages deal with problems while their hearts are still soft. To me, guarding your heart means refusing to allow pain to become your identity. It means refusing to allow disappointment to become bitterness. It means refusing to let yesterday's hurt control today's conversation. One of the biggest misconceptions is that people with soft hearts have had easy lives. I don't believe that for 1 minute. In fact, I think many of the people with the gentlest hearts have survived some of life's hardest seasons. The difference isn't that they avoided pain. The difference is they made a decision. They refused to let pain have the final word. Marriage has taught me something else. Bitterness doesn't usually arrive all at once. It grows quietly. First, there's disappointment, then frustration, then impatience. Then we begin assuming the worst. We stop giving our spouse the benefit of the doubt. We become quicker to criticize, slower to encourage. We notice everything they're doing wrong and forget everything they're doing right. That's what bitterness does. It changes our perspective before it ever changes our words. That's why I believe we have to catch it early, not after it's taken root, before. One habit that has helped me over the years is asking myself a few honest questions. Am I reacting to what just happened, Or am I carrying something that's been building for a while? Is this really about today? Or is today simply reminding me of something I never dealt with? Am I tired, overwhelmed, emotionally empty? Because sometimes what feels like anger is actually exhaustion. Sometimes what feels like irritation is really an empty cup. And here's something I've learned. When our cup stays empty for too long, everything begins to irritate us. Little things feel bigger. Small disappointments feel personal. We become short-tempered with the people we love most. Not because they're worse, because we have nothing left to give. That's why I don't believe taking care of your own heart is selfish. I believe it's one of the ways we protect our marriage. An empty cup often leads to overwhelm. Overwhelm can quietly become resentment, and resentment, if left alone, eventually becomes bitterness. It's a progression. That's why we have to pay attention early. Another lesson marriage has taught me is this: not every hurt needs the same response. Some things need to be discussed. Some things need to be forgiven. Some things simply need to be released. Wisdom is learning the difference. There have been times when I've needed to say, "Can we talk about something that's been on my heart?" Not because I wanted to argue, but because I didn't want that hurt to quietly become resentment. I've also learned there are moments when I simply need to pray before I speak. Because if I talk while my emotions are leading, I may say something that doesn't build the marriage. Waiting doesn't mean avoiding. Sometimes waiting simply means giving God time to calm your heart so your words can bring healing instead of more hurt. One thing I want to encourage every wife with today is this: don't wait until your heart feels hard before you pay attention to it. Pay attention while it's still tender. If you're disappointed, talk about it kindly. If you're overwhelmed, take care of yourself. If you're becoming resentful, deal with it before it becomes bitterness. Protect your marriage while the problems are still small. One thing I've learned after 34 years with Jake is that strong marriages aren't made up of people who never get hurt. They're made up of people who refuse to let hurt become the foundation of their relationship. Before we finish today, I want to leave you with one practical habit. The next time you're hurt, ask yourself 3 questions. What am I feeling? Why am I feeling it? What's the healthiest way to respond? Those 3 questions have the power to slow us down before emotions take over. Because when we slow down, we make wiser decisions. And wise decisions, repeated over time, quietly build strong marriages. I'm Donna, and this is Still Standing with Donna, helping wives build marriages that last by protecting their hearts, honoring their husbands, and making wise daily choices every single day. Because this is a season, not a sentence.